Hello, friends. The popularity of leftist ideas is growing every year all over the world. And indeed, if you look at the stratification of society by income from a simple logical point of view, a strong sense of injustice appears. Why do some get everything, and others get nothing? The bourgeoisie. How can this be? Millionaires sail on their own yachts, while ordinary people are forced to live on credit, looking for an opportunity to make it to the next paycheck. Injustice. Hatred. Rejection and the desire to change everything, to turn everything upside down. This terrible capitalism, the bourgeoisie, the global stratification of society, only 2% of the population of planet Earth own half of the world's wealth. Is this bad? Of course, it's very bad. Take away and divide. Take away. Divide. But in fact, everything is a little more complicated than it seems to us at first glance. I suggest we analyze this using a simple example, delve more deeply into this problem and discuss a specific example of extremely rich people who control the entire world. This conversation is needed in order to understand how this fact affects our lives today, the lives of ordinary people. And to make it clearer, I will deliberately bring the situation in my example to the point of absurdity. And I suggest that we all imagine that only one very impudent, very cunning super billionaire somehow stole, bought, privatized, in a word, took for himself from all the other people all the factories, all the ships, all the factories, all the houses, all the mineral deposits. And now all 100% of the world's property, the world's wealth belongs only to him alone. A purely hypothetical example, of course. What will change for ordinary people in such a situation? Friends, in reality nothing will change, and I will now try to explain why. This super rich man will physically be unable to gobble up and digest all the enterprises, all the assets. He will have to appoint some outsiders, managers, who will have to directly manage everything. Simple logical conclusions: the better the manager works, the higher the salary our super billionaire will have to appoint them. Perhaps, it will even be necessary to allocate part of the shares of his enterprise to major managers, just so that there is some selection, competition, some interest among the managers, and, accordingly, a hierarchy is built. Because if there is no interest in the work, the quality of work will constantly fall and the economy will stop. You will immediately object, but there is the carrot and stick method. Yes, but the carrot method, the punishment method, as the whole world history has shown, works much worse than the carrot method, the encouragement method. As the hero of Mikhail Bulgakov's novel Heart of a Dog, Professor Preobrazhensky, said, with any living creature you can only use affection, and nothing else. Only the language of kindness and affection, benefit, encouragement does a person understand. And therefore, the carrot will always work more effectively whip. In practice it has been proven, it is impossible to effectively manage people with the help of fear and slavish submission, since it always ends badly either for the good of the cause or for the slave owner himself. That is why special subtle mechanisms were built in the capitalist system, which at first glance seem unfair and predatory to all of us. Nobody wants to live forever under the fear of prison or death, and you must admit that it is usually not very pleasant for people, even the most bloodthirsty, to shoot and execute others forever. This contradicts the nature of our psyche. And of course, our multi-billionaire, possessing unlimited resources and power, most likely will not shoot anyone himself, but will simply remove his negligent subordinates from office, depriving them of their earnings. And talented and hard-working people will inevitably have to be encouraged and promoted. Agree, with such a development of events, absolutely nothing will change for ordinary citizens. They worked at their places, and will continue to work to the best of their talents and capabilities. And what about our conditional? What will a super billionaire do with the new money he earned? Of course, he doesn't need just money in the form of numbers in a bank account or cash, paper money, candy wrappers, because he already owns all the property in the world, he can print it himself. And all the extra profits will, one way or another, simply by logic, be invested either in new production, in new businesses, which will inevitably create new jobs. Or there will be a need to become a philanthropist and simply distribute his wealth to the most vulnerable segments of the population. In fact, this is what most real billionaires, bourgeois, capitalist sharks do. They simply give away their fortune to charity, give it to other people. Almost everyone does this: Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk and many others. No one takes anything with them to the grave, and usually only small crumbs are passed on by inheritance, so as not to ruin the lives of the heirs, tempting them with huge fortunes. All the remaining capital in this unfair capitalist system is returned to ordinary people one way or another. Few of those who criticize capitalism even think about this. As you can see, the activities of our conditional super-rich and all-powerful billionaire inevitably begin to benefit all people, in proportion to their hard work, talents, and natural abilities. Yes, enterprise, persistence, and even the ability to go over people's heads for the sake of profit are also welcomed. But those whom nature has offended for some reason, who were born with disabilities, will not be left without a livelihood one way or another. Because charitable foundations are inevitably created by extremely rich capitalists. This happens rather for internal psychological reasons. It is impossible to exploit the labor of an ordinary worker all your life and not experience the usual pangs of conscience, psychological discomfort, and a sense of duty to people. Those who have earned large capitals, one way or another, feel some awkwardness, even a sense of shame, so sooner or later thoughts inevitably appear about creating charitable foundations, unique ways of atonement for his sins. But you will rightly object to me, since he is a super billionaire, he will inevitably want to spend part of his money on some of his own, super luxurious consumption. Of course, our hypothetical almighty billionaire will want to build himself a super plane, a super yacht, a super palace. But these expenses of his will inevitably create additional jobs for a large number of workers and specialists. Some specialists will have to design and build these cars, yachts, houses and planes, and others will have to repair, service, and maintain cleanliness. After all, it is not the billionaire himself who will do this, agree? That is, from this side, our super billionaire, even if he really wants to, will not be able to harm the common people with his existence. Only on left-wing propaganda posters do they draw a bourgeois with fangs and blood, saying that he constantly drinks the blood of the common people, the proletariat. But in reality, no matter what he does, the common people will always get a chance to make money on this and become the same capitalist, the same bourgeois. No one forbids them from doing this. And if we accept this logic, then does one, even a very rich person, interfere with us? The answer is unequivocal: no, it does not. A billionaire does not have 3 lives, he does not have 3 throats and 3 stomachs to absorb his benefits for 3 or 10 people. In addition, he will inevitably have to take care of the common people, their housing, their medical care, education, kindergartens and schools during his well-fed life. Well, simply because the people do not suddenly decide to arrange an unexpected revolution for him or lie in wait for him in one of the narrow alleys, significantly shortening his already short life. You can, of course, fence yourself off from the people with the help of bodyguards and high fences, but if there are too many citizens dissatisfied with life, then no bodyguards, believe me, will save you, but on the contrary, they themselves will happily participate in the demonstrative execution of their former ruler. History has known a huge number of such examples. In other words, you will inevitably have to take care of the common people anyway. But since this is not an easy task, and people are such creatures for whom everything is always not enough, then our super billionaire will inevitably have to give a lot to others, pay a lot of taxes. Otherwise, they will drag him to the scaffold. They will have to create a bureaucratic apparatus, numerous officials who, if anything happens, will answer to the common people for their own or others' mistakes. They need figureheads who will draw attention and hatred from the angry crowd. But in reality, as you understand, there is no single super billionaire. We, of course, just made him up. But there are many capitalist people all over the world, a layer of 5 or 10% of the population who have achieved the greatest success in the field of earning money and preserving their capital. This is how the capitalist model of the economy works, and it is in fact the most stable and fair system. For one simple reason, simply because 99.9% of all countries in the world today have a capitalist bourgeois model of the economy. And that means that everyone is happy with it today. Shares, bonds, securities, the stock market. Even the most backward countries in the world are drawn into capitalism, even those that used to be below the poverty line due to their passion for leftist ideas. At the same time, political systems can be very different, but in economics, only one system has stood the test of life, the capitalist one. Because it corresponds to the nature of man, the biological nomenclature of which is quite defined. Let me remind you that Homo sapiens belongs to the species Homo sapiens, the family Hominidae, the order Primates, the class Mammalia, the subphylum Vertebrates, the phylum Chordates, and the kingdom Animals. The practical implementation of universal equality among animals is a utopia. In living nature, whether we like it or not, the principles of competition reign, and, as we know, the strongest survives. Behind the image of a rich bourgeois, whom we all hate so much, there is a reflection of some hidden natural justice. The most cunning, nimble, enterprising, and active people usually turn out to be ahead of the rest. I very often give one simple example, the story of the wolf and the hare. Fact: the wolf caught up with and ate the hare in the forest. Is this fair or not? From the hare's side, it seems unfair, he simply lost his life. But from the wolf's side, it is quite fair, since he ate, will feed his wolf cubs, and his species will continue to develop. But sooner or later, the wolf will die, his body will become food for microorganisms in the soil. These nutrients will become the basis for young green grass, which will be eaten by the hares, the descendants of the hare that was once so mercilessly eaten by the wolf. Ultimately, the highest natural justice triumphs. Although at the local level of individual events, of course, no justice exists by definition. Those who argue with such a state of affairs will in fact argue with nature, with biology, with the natural processes that occur in our lives. I hope I have given you some food for thought, and the next time you want to shout out calls, take away and divide. Take away and divide. Dispossess. You will still remember this example about the wolf and the hare, about the fact that justice in principle cannot be achieved at a single moment in time. But on a global level in nature, justice is, of course, inevitable. Subscribe to this channel. Thank you for your attention and see you soon.